Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to M.M.0.S Stories. I'm your host, Ella Favela, and it is my pleasure today to introduce a brand new segment, From the Front Lines. Today, I will be interviewing my good friend, Orin, about his work in harm reduction. Now, harm reduction is an evidence-based, client-centered approach which seeks to reduce the health and social harms associated with addiction and substance use without requiring people who use substances to abstain or to stop. Included in the harm reduction approach to substance abuse is a series of programs, services, and practices. Essential to harm reduction is that it provides people who use substances a choice of how they will minimize harm through non-judgmental and non-coercive strategies in order to enhance skills and knowledge to live safer and healthier lives. Harm reduction acknowledges that many individuals coping with addiction and problematic substance use may not be in the position to remain abstinent from their substance of choice. The harm reduction approach provides an option for users to engage with peers, medical, and social services in a non-judgmental way that will meet them where they are. This allows for health-oriented responses to substance use, and it has been proven that those who engage in harm reduction services are also more likely to engage in ongoing treatment as a result of accessing these services. Harm reduction initiatives have also been proven to reduce bloodborne illnesses and decrease the rate of death due to drug overdose. After the last video I posted about Melissa Platt, and given my own past history with addiction and my own struggles with mental health, I've realized that there is somewhat of a gap in speaking about harm reduction as it relates to abuse. There's a high incidence of homelessness and drug abuse with survivors of domestic violence, and one of the things that keeps a majority of women stuck is the fear of not having anywhere to go. Another reason why a lot of women find themselves addicted is in direct response to physical and mental abuse. All of these things, all of these issues, they all go hand in hand, and we can take a harm reduction approach to all three. In fact, taking a harm reduction approach to all three of those things is ultimately what gave me my freedom. I'm incredibly privileged to have friends who work in social services and who devote so much of their lives to helping other people. Orin took some time out of his life last week to have a conversation with me, and it is my honor and my privilege to present those answers to you here. As always, I would like to provide a brief content warning as it does cover sensitive and graphic topics that may not be suitable for everyone. This story dives into addiction, abuse, and violence, and it may be distressing for some viewers. If you are currently dealing with these issues or you have a history of trauma, please take care of yourself. You can choose to skip this video, watch it with someone you trust, or seek professional support if need be. I have provided resources and links for you in the description below, and I do encourage you to check them out. Now, without further ado, live from the front lines, Orin. Orin, thank you so much for being here today. I would love it if you started us off just by taking a moment to introduce yourself. I've known you for quite a while, but I actually don't know the specifics of your job title, your background, or your education, so please give us some key points.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Pretty excited to be here. My name is Orren Anderson. I grew up on a farm west of Beaver Lodge in northern Alberta. In 2012, I lived in Colorado for a year where I met the woman that I'm married to now. After that, I came home. I had a pretty mid-music career. I haven't really done anything with music in a long time. I bet I haven't played a show since before the first lockdown, so...
Orin also keeps an absolutely beautiful open journal on his social media, which I genuinely enjoy reading. I look forward to it every couple of days when he posts. If you'd like to read us a piece of your writing, Orin, I would be absolutely honored.
Man, that's pretty high praise. I really appreciate it. Okay, so the series that I do for writing, it's just on Instagram. It's nothing that serious, but it's just kind of that if I'm not doing music, this is kind of how I scratch that creative itch that I need. So the series is called Unseen. It's basically just meant to be things that wouldn't be seen or things that I feel like they just need to be highlighted. So This is a really personal one to me. The image I use, because it's on Instagram, it's called Self-Care. And I worked at a group home with people with developmental disabilities. And one of the girls there was just an absolute sweetheart. One of the things she loved to do was just draw with chalk outside. So she wrote my name, because she doesn't know my real name. She can't remember her name, so she has a nickname. I'm called Doctor Who. And she wrote it with a little ice cream on the sidewalk. And every time I see that picture, I feel all warm and fuzzy and like the world isn't so broken. So that's my self-care picture. All right, I'll start reading. Mindfulness and self-care. 10-year-old me only ate the vanilla yogurt. That way, my siblings wouldn't even have the chance to think that I was keeping all the good flavors for myself. I couldn't figure out what people did or didn't care about. It felt like every time I didn't step with care, I'd end up stepping in something and suddenly I was getting chewed out. I hate the feeling of not understanding what I did wrong, so I kind of learned at a young age to tiptoe pretty much every step. I learned that hypervigilance early. I didn't know that none of my siblings actually cared if I ate the cherry yogurt or not, but I still felt a need to keep myself at a deficit to them. I even figured that they kind of owed me one. Obviously, they didn't know that they owed me. I just assumed it. And when it wasn't reciprocated, I learned that I wasn't important. An important lesson that no one taught me. BPD, man. You don't do shit for yourself if you don't think you deserve a good life. And it can come out physically. I still have rampant tooth issues as a lasting consequence, even though I've always had access to everything I've needed to take care of myself physically. And the fact that I didn't is a little embarrassing. But there was this moment. One of those kind of I knew it when it happened moments. It was the first time I did something for myself without thinking about how it would affect or be perceived by anyone else. I just wanted a thing and I went and did it. That was kind of the moment I decided I would actually get better for myself. I knew something in me had changed, something that I hadn't really been able to access before. Now these days, I like my music loud, but I put the speaker at the other end of the room instead of right beside my ear. I heard Jonathan Van Ness on a Queer Eye episode tell a kid to get a cap for his toothbrush. Suddenly the next day I'm at Walmart looking for one too. These days I don't have that third beer because anything after 2 makes my guts hurt, and I care enough about myself today to make sure that Orin tomorrow doesn't feel like shit. And I've finally done enough mindfulness to recognize that it even happens. And listen, going 3 days on 2 packs of sour Skittles and a dozen energy drinks, I won't lie, it's still kind of appealing. But I also eat cucumber slices and carrots. There's nothing wrong with strawberries and whipped cream, as long as a brushes teeth after. So that's kind of the flavor that goes into.
Could you tell me a little bit about the work that you do and how you got there?
Yeah, definitely. So in 2018, I started working at a place called the St. Lawrence Center. The center, it's a drop-in for improperly housed folks. It's where I cut my teeth. It's kind of where I got traumed out after watching countless loved ones die and overdose all the time. I responded to tons of overdoses. All in all, I ended up just falling in love with that community though. So since I started working in the vulnerable sector, I kind of known I didn't want to do anything else. Over the years, I've taken several stress leaves, position changes, and a load of therapy trying to take care of myself so I can keep doing this line of work. These days, I'm in a really great position. I work as a volunteer coordinator at our local friendship center, and that's really awesome. I don't think I've responded to an OD in probably a year and a half, and I can still be effective and see my folks and, not have to be in between people trying to each other. So it's a great change.
Could you shed some light on the unique challenges faced by individuals who are homeless, addicted, and experiencing domestic abuse? How do these intersecting issues affect their well-being?
Yeah, for sure. So I brought a lot of personal examples. Almost all these questions, I'm going to answer them with personal examples. The names have all been changed. Privacy is important, so it's done in that way. So, all right. So first things first, when thinking about the challenges that everyone faces, just homelessness, kind of off the top, street living is just complicated. You're criminalized by your very existence. You're getting robbed on the daily. You're harassed and bullied by community members. The drugs are poisoned. They're killing your friends. And maybe you overdose sometimes too. Relationships with family, that's probably strained at the best. It seems like folks that if they're not completely disconnected from a family and the family does still come to support, I usually watch those situations play out where the improperly housed individual kind of gets filled with shame and self-hatred, and they can't be what their family wants them to be. So even having that support, it's still hard. There's still an intersection there that's just a difficult situation. So, and then on top of all that, if you live in a place like Grand Prairie, there's kind of one shelter in the whole town. Where we're too far north, we don't have the funding. And, you know, imagine getting kicked out of the only shelter, the only support that you have. And that's common. So first things first, when talking about the reality of street living, you kind of need to shut a piece of yourself off. And what I did for myself is I just had a line. It is what it is, which is a horrible, callous statement. But it was really necessary to survive for several years of watching people that I care about go through horrific shit. It is what it is. So before I move on from that and leave people expecting me to say a bunch of really callous stuff, like I want to bring dialectics into the conversation. My BPDS knows all about dialectics these days. So dialectics meaning two things are true at the same time. It is what it is, and there's no fucking reason why in 2023 things are still this way. Does that make sense? There's no reason. Yeah.
There's no reason for this. It is insane to me.
Yeah, that's where the saying every overdose death is a policy failure. That's where that comes from. So
amen to that.
Hell yeah. You need to accept what's happening around you, as in it is what it is, and you should be radicalized by it, because there's no way in hell that we can accept that people in a nation as well off and progressive as Canada, that this is still allowed to happen. So we need to accept reality while rejecting the idea that it's actually okay, in such a way that it inspires us to do something about it. It is what it is, and there's no way in hell I'm letting it stay that way. So both of those things are important. I'm going to go through a couple of different archetypes. If your life is like this, then living on the street probably looks like this. And it's kind of stereotypical, but I think it helps people understand. So think about if you're a big, intimidating guy, you're 6'5" and tattoos on your knuckles, neck, and face, you have some advantages. There's definitely disadvantages, but as far as street living goes, you're pretty much on the top of the food chain. So advantages, you don't really get with as much. You can probably push people around to get what you want. However, when a challenger does come along and with you, that outcome can be catastrophic. And sometimes the dude that yesterday was the hardest guy that ran, now he's on the sidewalk somewhere. So it's, dialectics. Things suck. Things can work out depending who you are. So on the flip side of that, a different archetype, imagine being a 4'11" trans woman. I'm actually not going to go into this one because I'm going to disassociate the fuck out. And if I go down the road, I'm probably going to start crying or something. So I'm gonna literally skip on by it. I just wanted to acknowledge though, like that is an experience and it needs to be acknowledged. So, okay. All right. Next archetype. Imagine being a 28-year-old woman who's conventionally attractive. Advantages and disadvantages. I'll start with the most obvious disadvantage. You probably have to deal with some really uncomfortable situations with a lot of dudes. And sometimes, this is as dark as I'm going to get, by the way, guys, but lots of times that ends up in rape. I'll go into kind of the last archetype. I think that there's kind of those three. It's like the big guy, there's the attractive one, and then like your regular experience. So a typical 32-year-old woman who's dating a 36-year-old guy, kind of a little bit of a background. Maybe you grew up together. So you feel like you kind of know him going in. That should be a little bit safer of a situation. So your boyfriend, he's well liked in the community. By extension, you get to share in some of those perks. Perks kind of like shelter staff probably like you, which means you always have access to a shower, to coffee, internet. When nighttime comes, you have access to a mat, which is pretty high priority in my town. Now, on top of that, maybe you have PTSD. And, maybe sometimes you just wake up screaming, but you're sleeping on a mat in a room full of other people. And this is pretty common. Imagine you wake up screaming and it pisses off the guy that's sleeping across from you. If you didn't have a boyfriend, that guy might shout you into a corner, or he might literally strike you until you submit, whatever. But because you have a boyfriend, he either talks the other guy down or he fights him or whatever, he handles it. And that's one of the largest reasons you don't see many single women kind of on the street, because life is just easier with protection. Obviously, there's a million different variations of all this stuff, but like I said, like the other examples, it comes with disadvantages and advantages. If you weren't with them, you'd probably experience violence in some form or another every couple of days, at least in Grand Prairie. But with him, you experienced it once every few weeks. And to make it worse, it might actually be from him. More than likely, it's from him, which is what really our topic of the day. So like I said, you might have grown up with this guy, you trusted him as a young person, but now that you're older, street living is messed with you both so much. Think about, he leaves, he's trying to go find dope to score, you guys are both sick, he comes back hours later, he has nothing, he's not holding anything. You lose it, you scream in his face. So, you just think about that situation. Like, he went out to score hours ago, comes back empty-handed. You're in withdrawals, you just want to be unsick, and this guy couldn't even find a point. So you scream at him. That seems really like, I don't know, that seems like expected to me as far as I'm concerned. Because if regular neurotypical folks can have emotional outbursts just from the stress of regular living, how much more difficult would it be to live in these complicated situations? Like, of course there's going to be blow-ups. So unfortunately for you, maybe he's also dope sick, and he's frustrated that he couldn't score. He already hates himself and he's miserable. He couldn't find down, and the last thing he needs is his girlfriend screaming at him for it. But you scream in his face. Now, all these intersections are meeting up right here. He snaps and he slaps you. It's never happened before, but you've never felt so betrayed. He apologizes, he swears it'll never happen again, all that stuff that you always hear. And the next day he comes back and he has enough down that he keeps you both unsick for a few days. Things kind of go back to normal. But, you know, Mel, you know as well as I do that once it happens once, it's almost starting to happen again, right? Eventually he does it again, and then that frequency increases. Sometimes he hits you and you didn't even yell at him first. It's not often, but your boyfriend is now straight up punching you in the face. So what do? You weigh your options. You can leave him, but the violence will probably be worse. It'll come from all directions. It's harder to manage. Or you can stay with him and take a little bit less abuse. You know, he still takes care of finding dope. He still might protect you from others. You get used to it. And here's that first, it is what it is moment. So story time. Okay, fall 2019. We have a volunteer. He brings soup for lunch every single Thursday. I'm gonna call him Jim. Jim is the best. Jim is kind to everyone. As he fills their bowl, he smiles at people. If people want to pray with him because he's Christian, he does that, but he doesn't force it on anyone. He's really respectful. He serves soup until his pot is empty, and then he comes back the next Thursday. The clients love him, as do us staff. So one day, Jim is in the hall serving his meal. I'm in the main room. I'm just mopping the floor. All of a sudden, I hear a commotion. I hear yelling. So I drop my mop and I run back to the hall. I see one of the guys, he's taken off outside, and his girlfriend, she's sitting on the floor. I can tell already that her eye is swelling up. I don't need to ask any questions. I know what's happening. But Jim, the volunteer, he's livid. He's on his knees sitting beside her. He's holding her hand. He's trying to console her. And he's also screaming for me to come and do something. He's never seen shit like this. So I come in, I check on the girl first. And the crazy part is the girl's like, go and calm your volunteer down. I'm fine. Like, it's so regular life to her that she was like, take care of this guy first. And that's, you know, heartbreaking in and of itself. So I check on her, then I take Jim outside and I talk to him, I ask him kind of what he saw. He goes, Orin, they were just talking. It was totally normal. And then boom, he smacked the soup bowl from her hands and he just punched her. Orin, he punched her so hard that she fell down. She didn't even make a sound. She didn't even make a whimper. You need to stop this. And I kind of stood there staring at him for a minute, just like not sure how to tell him that this was the better alternative than if she wasn't with that guy. So I tried to explain it to him and he got emotional. He stopped crying and, you know, guess what I told him? I said, Jim, it is what it is.
As a harm reduction specialist, how do you approach providing support to someone dealing with both addiction and domestic violence, especially when they're homeless?
Okay, so firstly, I kind of needed to understand my role, and that takes a while to develop, especially when it comes to street living. So when I first started, I was kind of just the guy that would rap sometimes when clients would ask me to. I'd just mop floors, and I basically made sure no one died. No one even would know your name. You have to be there consistently and prove that you're solid before anyone's going to really let you in. So, and also another thing is, like, as a male, I'm probably a lot harder to trust for a lot of folks, kind of regardless of sex, because I know a lot of men that also don't trust men quickly. Like, women are just safer, and I include myself in that, but certainly more so for women. So initially, my role is to just shut the up, honestly. Like, if someone wants to talk to me, when they want me to know something, then they'll come and talk to me. And it took a long time before that happened. I was probably there 6 months plus before the first person even opened up a little bit. So like I said, the streets, you know, they run on respect, but they're kind of managed by trust. And no one is trusted until they've been around long enough for folks to really believe that they actually are solid. So once people started disclosing to me, thinking, like, really trusting me, then my role changed. I wasn't just the guy that was there. All of a sudden, I had a role to be a big brother to some, to others as kind of a protector. Protector's kind of, I'm using that term pretty loosely because unfortunately I can't really protect anyone from shit. Like, when I'm there, for sure, if there's a fight happening, I can get in between things. I can I can do lots, but I'd consider myself more of like an emotional protector, I guess. So I can hear what someone's telling me. I can help them make sense of their experience. I'm like you said, I'm a good writer. I'm good with words. I'm communicating is an okay thing for me. I do well in that. I can show them love and support. I can meet most of their physical needs. Like I can get a toothbrush, I can get them soap, we can get a meal, we can get harm reduction gear. I can check on them as much as I need. When a client, like another example just of what that would look like, if a client has the flu and they're throwing up on their mat, I'm going to come by with a glass of water and a towel, let them go to the bathroom and clean up. And hopefully before they're even back, I'm going to have the vomit mopped up, a fresh blanket, fresh pillow. You know what I mean? Like I can take care of them and I can be with them while they go through it. But that's about it. When that clock hits 6 p.m., I get to go home. But, they stay there until I arrive the next morning at 8 a.m. and a lot can happen in those 14 hours. So I feel like that context is important to understand kind of how I operate and what my role looks like in the day-to-day. As far as the harm reduction goes, that's the easy part. That shit's easy. It's just following logic. So if a person uses drugs intravenously, they share a needle with their friends. They've been using the same needle for like a couple of weeks. Logically, how do you reduce the harm? You dispose of the rig, you get them a new one, you get them alcohol swabs they can clean around where they're going to puncture. You can give them a clean cooker, clean water so they're not using a rusty spoon or puddle water. Give them a tie or like a tourniquet that'll loosen on its own over time so they don't have to use like a belt that cuts off circulation. Give them education on safer use. Like if you tell them what spots have veins that are safer to jab, which spots have been kind of used up, where's more risk. Like that's when it comes to harm reduction, that's the easy part. Now, when it comes to harm reduction and domestic violence and how that differs, I really wanted to check in. I have some friends over at the WHO program with HIV North. WHO stands for Women's Health Organization, and their main focus is pregnant street folks and women experiencing domestic abuse. So I hit up a few of them. Everyone was like, oh, we'd love to answer some of these questions. But unfortunately, in this line of work, everyone's already insanely busy. Everyone's burnt out. No one really has the energy for anything extra. Unfortunately, I didn't get that information in time, which is too bad because I really wanted to know, like, what are their protocols? Because I've never really been involved on that side. That would be more of them. So hopefully next time, if you ever bring me back, hopefully I'll have a better answer there.
What are some common barriers that homeless and addicted individuals facing domestic abuse encounter when seeking help or resources? And how do you work to overcome these obstacles?
So I again answered this with another example. So many services have policies in place to protect staff kind of as there should be. But this gets really messy here because most clients, they need, not one or two chances. Everyone needs 50 to 1,000 chances and everyone's deserving of all those chances as well. But when you're staff, no one should have to face the abuse, the insults, physical abuse sometimes. I've been punched out, all that stuff has happened and no one really deserves it. So it's hard to find that. It's a real tightrope, and I haven't found an organization that does it properly yet. And I don't have a good answer either. So just keep that in mind, that's a huge portion of the barriers that people facing these issues face.
Can you share a case or a story that illustrates the complex dynamics and the vulnerabilities of individuals dealing with homelessness, addiction, and domestic violence, and how you were able to assist them?
This client, her name is Sarah. Sarah's well-liked by shelter staff. She helps clean when she's able. She helps when there's an overdose happening. She loads rigs with naloxone. She just wants to be helpful. She doesn't really ever be involved in many big issues. When drama does come up, she usually helps solve more than she does cause. So for us shelter staff, Sarah's solid, and we all have a soft spot for her. One day, Sarah actually asks for help. She says that she's interested in detox and treatment. So shelter staff make a referral for an outreach worker to come and meet with her. This outreach worker is pretty much a legend as far as my city goes, really good reputation. She's invested in her clients. She works hard to make sure that they're all given opportunities. But like most really good outreach workers, she's also known to take no shit. And if she feels like a client is her around or not doing what they say they're going to do, she'll just drop them off their caseload and move on to the next client. I work a little differently than this, but honestly, that's best practice. Workers that want to be effective and help people move forward, they really kind of work with other motivated clients. All right, so Sarah's now working with this outreach worker. They're scheduled to meet at the ID clinic at a nearby building the following Wednesday. The clinic runs on a first come, first served basis, so you need to be there right when it opens at 8 a.m. You got to get your name on the list because they only take 5 people a day and they're only open 2 days a week. Side note, if Grand Prairie wants to have a better service for getting folks IDs, then it needs a huge funding boost. And it is absolute embarrassment that clients who need IDs to receive any sort of support, but getting that ID is actually nearly impossible. It's a massive hole in our city, and it desperately needs to be addressed. I just wanted to gripe about that for a minute. I will carry on. So Sarah, she's agreed to meet her outreach worker on Wednesday, 8 a.m. As shelter staff, we've already bragged about Sarah to the outreach worker. She says that we always say how nice she is, how she's so appreciative, her manners are great. She always makes her appointments. I always say stuff like that because that's kind of how you need to advocate. I try to sell a client to like a worker before they even meet if I can, because I'm trying to prevent this that's about to happen in this example. Okay, so appointment is Wednesday morning. This is Tuesday night. Sarah's on her mat. She's asleep. It's like midnight. Suddenly she wakes up. Someone's going through her bag right beside her. Sarah starts screaming at him, waking everybody up. Lights turn on. She ends up fighting the thief, and the night staff kick them both out for the night. It's -20 outside, so Sarah has to leave the downtown area kind of altogether, trying to find somewhere warm so she can just hunker down for the night. Because it takes so long to get where she's going, her phone is dead, so now her alarm's gone. When she wakes up, she heads straight to the scheduled appointment, but because she slept in, all 5 slots have already been filled in, she's too late. Sarah heads back to the shelter. She calls her worker. She apologizes for being late. The worker says, hey, no problem. ID's open Wednesdays and Thursdays, so we got tomorrow as well. So during the day on Wednesday, this is the type of person Sarah is. She literally writes apology notes to the staff who kicked her out the night before, leaves them at the office so that when those staff come back on shift, they're like sitting in their mailbox. Like, she's really intentional. Absolute sweetheart. And I also wanted to add that if I was in her situation, I also would have fought, because that's a long and painful history. I just want to make sure that like these intersections are clear. There's a long and painful history with that person, so she didn't have much choice in it. Also wanted to add that if I was on shift that night, I don't think I would have kicked her out. I probably wouldn't have kicked out either of them, because -20 is too cold. Fast forward to Wednesday afternoon. Sarah's in the shelter. She's caught with drug paraphernalia by shelter staff. So that's an automatic 24-hour ban. Despite another massive setback, Sarah's resourceful and she's super nice. Everyone likes Sarah, including her recently house friend, Shelby. Shelby tells Sarah to come and stay with her because all of them take care of each other. And that's dope. It's why I love my people so much. Sarah and Shelby both use drugs and they take care of each other. They carry Narcan, all that good. Client Sarah, she's been kicked out of the shelter for being found with drug paraphernalia. Her friend Shelby told her to come stay at her place so she can make her meeting the next morning, trying to get ID. Sarah and Shelby both use drugs. I wanted to point out that if anyone's ever wondered who responds to the most overdoses, it's not shelter staff, it's not EMS, it's not fire, it's drug users. Like if folks follow harm reduction principles, you never use alone and you never use at the same time. And Shelby and Sarah, they both buy into that because they're rock stars and they're the real heroes in this tale. So I'll start from there. Okay, so they're in Shelby's place. It's evening. They think they have a good, safe night. Shelby uses first when they figure that she's good. Kind of a few minutes later, Sarah uses after. But like a minute after that, after she starts nodding off, Shelby's boyfriend comes home. He's had a rough day and he's an emotional guy because, as I've been trying to explain, street living is hard. So he's loud. They've been there for a couple of weeks. The landlord has heard him yell several times. He's never put anyone in danger. He's just having a hard time. But now this landlord, she doesn't feel safe. So she comes to the door, warns them they're on thin ice. But while she's there, she notices Sarah sitting on the couch. Then she notices that Sarah's actually on the nod, despite her best efforts to appear sober. So now this landlord is pissed. There's rules in place, and that they can't have any guests, and there's also a zero tolerance policy on drugs. They're still on their probationary period, so now they're in big trouble and their housing is at risk. All because they didn't want their friend to freeze to death. So Sarah goes, let me get out of here. Let me fix this for you. I'm just going to go. And it seems to subside the anger in the landlord. I don't really know how that ended up. I know they ended up in that apartment for a few more months at least. But yeah, it was messy. So now Sarah's stuck outside again. She tries to hunker down in a corner, but some cops tell her to leave. So she ends up wandering around all night just trying to keep warm. She loses track of time. Her phone's long dead. Long story short, she misses her appointment again. This time, the outreach worker concludes that she's not actually serious about the goals that she laid out. She takes her off of her caseload. Sarah has to figure out hasn't even started the process. She hasn't even got to start ID. So she has to figure it all out on her own again, or at least until she feels ready enough to meet with another worker. But this time when she does, It's with another layer of failure on her shoulders, that little bit of extra shame from just another experience where her circumstances were so chaotic that it was impossible to manage her life and make her appointments. So because drugs are criminalized, because street living is so chaotic, because different agencies have different rules and procedures that don't allow wiggle room, and because that landlord prioritized their own comfort over Sarah's life, that outreach worker lost confidence in her. And now how much of this is actually Sarah's fault? I know someone could say, she shouldn't have been doing drugs, but I just want to say shut the fuck up because you don't understand. She had very little of this was in her control. 2 days of just chaos, just to try and make an appointment, and she wasn't able to. Now, on top of that, imagine if Sarah was actually facing abuse, if she had a boyfriend or something, or any of those things. How much more unmanageable would all of this be? It's an absolute nightmare, and it's a never-ending black hole.
In your outreach efforts, which strategies do you find the most effective in building trust and rapport with individuals who may be hesitant to disclose their experiences with intimate partner violence?
For me, I was really intentional. Like when I talked about the outreach worker previously, kind of getting motivated clients that, they already had goals and they wanted to move forward with them. I had a really different perspective. I didn't want to pick up a client that was like quote unquote easy. I wanted to take on the clients that other workers avoided, because that's really my passion. A lot of people fall through the cracks, and that's unacceptable to me, and I want to make sure that those people had someone. Of course, I'm not there anymore, and there's a lot of guilt surrounding that, but in my time there, that was my main goal. Funders don't like that shit because they want to see results. That's why workers are encouraged to work with motivated clients. Every person that they house or gets put in detox, that's considered a success. For me, success looks different because I don't really push sobriety on anyone. I don't know. Success is just so different for me because I just refuse to force someone into that or coerce them into, if you want to have these opportunities, you got to get clean, because that just doesn't work. So for me, success looks different. When I first meet with the client, I ask what their goals are. Usually it's one main goal. Everyone says housing because obviously no one wants to be homeless. Now, I'm no housing worker. Housing workers have a horribly frustrating job in a city with very few options. So I couldn't do that. I'm upfront about that with clients. I let them know that I'll work with them. I'll keep them on my caseload. I won't take them off until they ask. I'll take them as far as I can. When it comes to housing, I'm going to have to refer them out to another agency. But I do always ask if they're interested in sobriety. If not, then I want to ask if they're interested in lessening their use, or if they have no interest in changing the way that they manage their use at all. I do this really intentionally, and I'm careful with my words because autonomy is usually robbed from people just by signing up with an outreach worker. Like I said, I refuse to force people into sobriety. That shit makes people use in secret, and when people use in secret, that means it's more dangerous. That means it leads to overdose deaths. I don't ever judge a person by their use. I just do my best to help them do it safely, or at least more safely than they were. So usually working with me, that could be a really short thing. Like for most people, there's probably a few months process. For a lot of my people, because I only took them as far as they wanted to go, I might only work with someone for a few weeks. Up to a few years. I literally went to a wedding like last month of a girl that I got to support and got out. She's literally got married.
That's amazing. Congrats.
Right? You don't do that much. Hell yeah, absolutely. So working with me can be short. So as an example, I pick up Susie on Monday on my caseload. Like I said before, Wednesday is the first day of ID. So Monday and Tuesday, we're going through goals. I'm just checking in on them. We're coming up with our plan. By Wednesday, I come in early. I make sure that they're awake. I take them to the building. I don't ask people to meet me at places because that just never works. I know the staff over there at the ID clinic because I've pumped loads of clients through that program. Shouts out to Orin over at Aberdeen 3rd floor. You are a legend as far as Grand Prairie goes. So
shout out to Orin.
Okay, so once that process is started, I started looking into whatever else they have going on. Do they have warrants? Do they have a court date? Do they have kids that they want to visit? I can look into that stuff for them. From there, I'll basically get them hooked up with a bank account. If they have an account or something, but there's no income, I start working on Alberta support so that they can start getting some money coming in. Those are just the foundational things. Once people have those couple things in place, they can start moving ahead. But you need ID, you need income, you need a bank account. Another thing that I kept in my approach is actually celebrating client victories, kind of no matter how small. So a couple weeks into that ID process, Orin, that we're just talking about, shouting out, she would come. So if Wednesday and Thursday in the morning, she meets with people, she gets her ID stuff together. In the afternoon on Thursday, she meets you at registries, and you take your clients and you get them set up with like the photo that's going to go onto their card. So on those Thursdays, people are usually in really high spirits, knowing that this is the last thing they have to do until they're going to get their ID. And that's, like I said, that's a big deal because sometimes people don't have ID for years at a time. But yeah, so we celebrate it. We take them to the drive-thru afterwards. Usually get a burger, a drink of whatever sort. But
Love it.
Yeah, the car will be full of clients who will be like blasting Tupac or something because everyone loves the same music that we do.
Oh yeah,
that's the best. So another cool thing I wanted to add is the shelter actually reimbursed me for taking people to the drive-thrus. I think that's a really cool thing that a low-funded place would prioritize those little celebrations.
Are there specific harm reduction approaches or interventions tailored to address the safety and well-being of those dealing with homelessness, addiction, and domestic abuse?
Yeah, for sure. I think most people, when they think about harm reduction, they probably think about like a needle exchange program, things that address homelessness first. Obviously, this is a way bigger concept than just addressing our homelessness crisis in Canada. Think about wearing a seatbelt as harm reduction. It isn't saying, I hope I get in an accident, or I live my life in fear, so I buckle up. It's just acknowledging that accidents happen, and you have a higher chance of not getting hurt in the event of an accident when you're wearing a seatbelt. So harm reduction is also when you've had 3 beers on a Tuesday night, and you're eyeing up your fourth, but you know that you have to be up at 5:30 a.m. to get to work on time. Anything over a few beers makes your guts hurt. So instead of that fourth beer, you drink a glass of water instead. That's absolutely reducing harm. One thing to add, anyone listening to this, I promise you, no matter what you think about your job or your family or whatever, you know several people that use drugs. They function differently. You might never know because they might have a really good relationship with that substance, but
What community resources or support networks have proven to be the most invaluable for individuals facing these challenges, and how do you connect them with these resources?
Grand Prairie has some really legendary individuals. Jared Gosson, he's the founder and the executive director of the St. Lawrence Center where I started. He brought me into this together with his sister Nikki. We all ruined ourselves together responding to uncountable overdoses in a way over max capacity room that was just filled with homeless folks. So shouts out to everyone who ever had a hand over there. The Rotary fam, security team I was always close with, like Heavy T, Blakey Poo, and of course my brother Four Leaf. And I can't forget about Patsy, the OG, and anyone else who's ever worked the St. Lawrence Center. Y'all are heroes. Sherry Lee, Penny from CMHA, they were outreach workers. They taught me how to be professional and never take no for an answer while demanding better care for our folks. So CMHA has a great outreach program. And also just to tout CMHA a little bit more, before I started working at the Friendship Center, I was working outreach for them. I was really messed up. My mental health was poor. And I was only there for a few months and I had to leave and go on a leave. And they were 100% had my back. They supported me the whole way. And I'm not even there anymore. And still those people check in on me. So yeah, that's a great organization. I can't speak for every community, but from Vancouver over to the Falls, it sounds like they're really getting in. So I want to shout out Mel from HIV North, formerly HIV North. It's now Northreach. Marina from there as well. She held it down during the Tent City era. They do STI testing. They also run that WHO program I was talking about, the Women's Health Organization. Really great organization. Audrey from there. Chris, anyone else who ever came, switched me out when things were bad. They used to come and change us out, like so that we could get a break. They would just come and replace us at the shelter. Everyone from Alberta Works, who made it painless as possible for clients to get that income. I know that's a really hard thing to do and there's a lot of obstacles, and it seems like most of the staff there really did their best to just not let the bullshit even affect a client. They just dealt with it themselves and made sure people got what they needed.
I want to personally shout out Alberta Works too. Thank you very much for getting me started in 2016 back in Edmonton, right a couple months, I think, before I met you. So Alberta Works, it's not an easy thing to do. It's a super early morning. You're going to walk in there. You're going to feel really lost. It's going to feel very official and like you're not going to get any help at all. But once you get past all the computer screens and once you do all the waiting, finally get to talk to someone. They will actually listen to you. I think I talked for about an hour and a half. And I left there with an ID appointment, bus pass, housing appointment. And I think 3 or 4 days later, I had a bank account. A couple days after that, I had a couple $1,000s in there too.
Next, Paula and her One Window team over at the Friendship Center, whereas where I work now. Miranda, she's the ED over there. And those guys really hold it down. It's a pleasure to work on that team. Shouts out to them. If anyone listening lives in Grand Prairie and wants to volunteer, I know a guy, so hit me up. Yeah, there's lots more people who deserve credit. I guess the only other shout outs I want to make are any hospital staff, any outreach nursing staff, pretty much anyone who treats folks proper and goes above and beyond for them. Because that place in particular can be really rough. So the ones that stick their neck out and do their best, I appreciate you. And lastly, Aaron, you already talked about from ID, who always found a way to get those cards in my folks' hands. All of these people.
Shout out, Aaron.
Hey,
getting that ID is such a road bump, man. Holy moly.
I was gonna say before, like sometimes people would get it in the mail, they open it up, and they would just start crying. Like it was.
Well, you need ID to get ID, right? So you go to the ID office and you're like, "Hey, this guy stole my ID. Okay, well, prove who you are." Well, I'm homeless. Well,
yeah,
can't help you.
Yeah, my parents aren't gonna talk to me. Like, yeah, and listen, Erin's amazing. She figures out if you went to jail, she finds out what cell block you were on. She finds out proves your identity through that. She calls your old elementary school. Yeah,
trooper. We love it.
Hell yeah.
How do you navigate the delicate balance of respecting an individual's autonomy and choice while also ensuring their safety when they're dealing with addiction and intimate partner violence?
Yeah, no doubt. What a rough one, hey? I've touched on autonomy already. So I'm going to tell another story. I think it's the last story I have, so we're coming to the end. Okay, when I told the story of the volunteer who brought the soup, Jim, he watched a young woman take a punch from her boyfriend. After he calmed down some, I went back to the victim. I'm going to call the victim Sadie and talk about her side of it. So Sadie's used to that treatment. She's been punched out often. One of her friends was beside her when I came back. They were both sitting on the floor, leaned against the wall. Sadie's girlfriend is leaning on her head on Sadie's shoulder, and they're holding hands. I remember this really well. They had Whiskey Lullaby playing on a phone beside him. Sadie told me that she was okay, and then she hugged me, because again, she's being strong for everyone else, even though she's the victim. So I asked her what she wanted to do. She didn't really respond. I told her I could call the women's shelter, see if they had any beds open. Finally, she looked up. She said, "Don't really waste your time. We both know I'm not going anywhere." So I hugged her again and told her that if she ever changed her mind, I wanted to be the first to hear about it. Later on, her boyfriend came back. He knew he wouldn't be allowed inside yet, because honestly, he's a pretty decent guy. I mean, it's hard to say that when he just beat the shit out of somebody that's vulnerable, but yeah, so boyfriend comes back. He knows he's not going to be allowed in yet, and he's pretty respectful, so he just stays outside the window until he sees that I see him. He kind of waves at me. He's like, "Okay," and he waits outside. So once I finish talking to the girl, I stand outside the door, I light my smoke, and we talk. And I'm furious at him. Like, I want to kill this guy. I'm going to call him Jeff. So Jeff has had a pretty hard life, just like everyone else. But between growing up in and out of foster homes and several years in jail once he aged out, Jeff never really had a chance. He was kind of destined for the streets. So I'm out there, I'm having my smoke, he's talking to me, he says, "I don't know, man, I think it's just this place," talking about the shelter. He says, "It's just this place, it's like a black hole. Everyone who comes here gets sucked in. I never used to hit women, I wouldn't even imagine it. Now I smack her up once a week." Jeff was ashamed of himself. He hated how he just reached out and violently hurt someone that he cared about, so impulsively that he never even stopped to think about it. A childhood of violence and neglect, and an adulthood of violence for the sake of survival, and years of using drugs from a poison drug supply is just wrecked him. And honestly, for what he did to her, you know what I'm saying? Like, that shit is inexcusable. All right, okay, back to the story with Jeff. So, as I said, that shit's inexcusable. To this day, I still don't really know what to do with it, because I respect that guy too. I even consider him a friend. I shake his hand when I see him, the same hand that he uses to punch Sadie. I don't have an answer here. I don't know how to have love and compassion while also siding with the person that he victimized and trying to protect them at the same time. Like, it's complicated, right? Yet I'm shaking hands with the abuser. I don't know what to do with that, but I know that Jeff has never known anything but being a victim himself. It just seems like the natural progression that he would also act violently towards others. It is up, and the conditions for his childhood just shouldn't exist. But if Canada still doesn't want to find ways to fix this mess caused by colonization, we should expect more of this. But we'll only blame them individually and never the conditions that cause these situations, right? Thanks. Welcome to Canada.
What can everyday people do to raise awareness and to support those who are homeless, addicted, and experiencing domestic abuse within their communities?
Yeah, this is going to take all of us. Everyone listening, it's not just going to take listeners, it's going to take everybody. This is This needs to be communities coming together. We've been in this long enough. Government's not coming to save us. No one's coming. We got to do it ourselves. So for everyday people, each of us kind of has a platform now. We all have social media of some sort. Many use their platforms to push misinformation these days or attitudes towards anyone they don't understand. And I personally think that nonsense should be combated by people like us. I think every person can use their platform to promote the opposite of that. It is a cesspool, but that cesspool is being used to radicalize Canadians into transphobia, racism, and sometimes lately, outright fascism. I don't have any other words for it. So this should concern everyday Canadians like yourselves. Everyday Canadians should use whatever means that they have to tell those who hold those views that not all Canadians are okay with it, and we expect better, and we actually stand against it. I think our window of actually fixing it might be closing. It's just a really scary time. I don't know what it's like in Ontario. Here in Alberta, it is pretty scary. Like I said, I think everyday Canadians, they need to speak up. They need to, even if you don't. So I'm maybe pretty far left, radical left, even by some people's standards. Mostly what I want like a safe supply. I want a safe and regulated supply of drugs coming through where people can get the drug that they want without questions. That's where I'm at. So maybe that's a little far.
I think what Oren's trying to say is that we're sick and tired of having friends think that they're just buying some blow and ending up dead because there was Fenty in the bag.
Okay.
It's happened to too many of my friends, and I'm sure it's happened to too many of yours. And quite frankly, there's just really no excuse for it. I'm not saying, hey, go do blow, but I am saying, hey, if you go spend your money on it, that's what it should be.
Yeah, for real. And if there was a safe way to do it, I remember when I was a kid, there was the first ecstasy scare or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they talked about 4 people in Alberta died that one year in 2002 or whatever it was. I remember being like, that's crazy. 4 people died from this MDMA. And I was like, man, I was responding to 12 overdoses in a day. And it's going to take radical, crazy things that, we've got to just try things. Because right now we're not trying anything new. We just keep saying abstinence only, 12-step. And I got nothing against any 12-step or sobriety-focused programs, but it's just not for everyone.
Absolutely. Hey, shout out Smart Recovery too.
So yeah, we can talk about the different programs and stuff like that all day, but it's going to come down to communities coming together, supporting people. When you see someone at -30, stop, ask them if they need to sit in your car and warm up, bring them a sandwich, don't be scared to give people money. A lot of people are against that. Do what you want with your money. But for me personally, if I give a $20 bill to someone, that's their money. They can do what they want with it. And I think people should be more open to exploring that as well. But yeah, it's going to take all of us, and yeah, we've got to do it ourselves. Take care of your loved ones. And if you have a family member that's stuck on the street, stuck in addiction, like I said, on their end, it might be really shameful every time you come up, but knowing that someone still cares, that they haven't been left behind, man, that's huge. And we need all of us.
In your experience, what are some promising signs of progress or success when helping individuals break the cycle of homelessness, addiction, and abuse?
So here in Alberta, since the UCP's last AGM was only 2 weeks ago, things have gotten pretty bleak. They've defunded safe consumption sites, which, by the way, will cost lives. People I know by name will die without access to the service. There's no question. It's already happened. Everyone who was involved in making that happen. It paints you as compassionate as you become even more responsible for the deaths of my friends. Yes, when I get bogged down in that shit, how bleak all that is, I think about how in BC, different substances have been decriminalized. There is some safe supply, not true safe supply, but there's a safe supply adjacent pilot projects happening. Those are all showing really good results. They provide drug users that are able to enroll in those programs. They give them safer alternatives than the poison shit in the streets. So if someone uses heroin, they might not have real heroin or anything, but they might give you some dillies or something, some safer, hydromorph, whatever. There's a lot more safer stuff. Another really encouraging thing is the Drug Users Liberation Front, aka DULF. I'm actually wearing a hoodie by them. Legends right there, for sure. So they're doing unsanctioned safe supply, which is ballsy as so they've got some serious stones, even as police have recently arrested DULF members and raided their homes. Like I said, those folks are heroes, and they should be supported by every Canadian who cares about human life.
Could you tell me briefly about what DULF is doing?
So DULF, they crowdfund drugs that they can test. I think they do cocaine, meth, and heroin. So there's those three main substances. And they just make sure that they're actually safe. They test them. I don't know where they buy it from. Like, all of that's probably kept super under wraps, which is pretty understandable these days. And then they together once a month, they have a big meeting, and people just line up and they just hand out the dope, the cocaine, whatever. They just give it out. If someone says, I want 3 grams of heroin, they give them 3 grams of heroin and no questions asked.
So we were talking about autonomy and choice and also safety. This is that it is what it is, but it can also be safer, and it can also be more humane.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're leading the charge. They said that the government, your inaction is costing our friends' lives. We're going to do this ourselves. So that they're just doing it. They're just moving. And even though they're facing consequences, man, they haven't slowed down. I don't know how much I should say now that we have a new climate coming in with these political changes, but I'm assuming I'm probably fine. The St. Lawrence Center I worked at, that was actually an unsanctioned supervised consumption site before it was legal. We saw the need, and it was needed. Everyone was going to die. And then we finally got the consumption site, and it spared us from, it probably cut the overdoses I responded to down to a fraction of what it was. If nothing else, it saved us staff from, the mental anguish and all of that. So, of course, these programs and projects, they're under constant threat of being shut down and defunded, especially with our likely future Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre, who spouts lies and propaganda against safe supply and harm reduction, et cetera, et cetera. I will stop talking about politics now.
Please take the floor and just tell me a little bit more about what you do, and also shine a spotlight on yourself. I would love it if you would shine a light on some of the work you do, who you are, any shout outs, any accomplishments you'd like to make in the near future.
So a bit about me. I just turned 30 in October. I have a dog named Shiloh and a wonderful life partner named Katie, who's been through a lot of madness with me. I played bass, and I've been involved in a few different bands over the years. I had a solo rap career like I was talking about before. I've had varying success in music and had a lot of fun in it, but I was mainly doing it because at the time I was a Christian and I wanted to use it as an evangelism tool. These days, I don't really subscribe to the same things, so music has been on the shelf. I'm not done with it. I am keeping my eyes open for new opportunities. In the meantime, I've been doing some public journaling, mostly on Instagram. I have a few series that I'm doing with it. The main one was I read at the beginning of this episode, it's titled Unseen. I use it to talk about social issues like what we've spoken about today, but also a lot of my own personal experiences and mental health journey. I've been pretty public about my diagnoses of borderline personality disorder, ADHD, other comorbid conditions, complex trauma, as well as my own substance use. I make myself way too vulnerable, and I really stick my neck out. But it's important. I don't know. I just really need to know that when I look back on this time that we're facing right now, when I look back in 30, 40 years, whatever, I just want to look back at this period and know that I did everything that I could. I don't want to regret holding my tongue. I know I have a gift with words, and I want to use it in every way I can because, like we're talking about, I'm sick of watching my friends die, the inaction of those with the power that could make change. So I'll make sure I make a little bit of noise, and I'll hold it down in my roles as long as I can. So yeah, if someone is interested in that series, reading more about what I do, you can find me on IG at LS Hip Hop. Twitter is unusable, and Facebook probably isn't worth using, so you'll mostly just find me on Instagram. People can get a hold of me there. As far as goals go, me and a friend, we're actually working on our own podcast. We have a name, but little else. We want it to look very similar to this project that we're doing with this interview, Mel. It'll be called The Lighthouse, so keep your eyes out for that. If someone wants to hear, someone wants to hear any of my musical endeavors I've been a part of, I played bass and sang backup vocals in a band called Crown for Ashes. That record was actually nominated for Album of the Year with the Dove Awards, which is pretty cool. And I think the biggest accomplishment I have, that album is called Letters from the Wasteland. So if someone wants to hear some cool kind of old school metal, not very heavy. It's like an Albertan Iron Maiden is what it feels like. So that's good. My hip hop was pretty awful, like really awful. And if you really want to hear what that was like, you can find me on Facebook. And I'm going to spell it out. It's MC Lifestyle. So the letters M, C, and Lifestyle spelled Lyfestyle. I don't really use that page much, but there is actually a cipher that I did. It's pinned to the top of that page. But again, I don't really use it. With the band I was talking about, shouts out to Dovefire Records, who signed me back in 2015. Nathaniel, Melissa, John the Don, all those guys who got me started in doing music professionally. That was a really cool part of my life, and I wouldn't have gone anywhere without them.
Orin, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate your time and all of your effort in answering my questions. I hope that everybody listening was able to take a little bit of value from it and to see how this is directly tied to everything that we do normally talk about on this channel. Before I go, I would like to remind you that I am currently having a giveaway over on my Instagram where the 100th follower will win a free painting shipped worldwide with absolutely no strings attached, which is pretty exciting. Please join us on Instagram for your chance to win. And while you're at it, go ahead and join all my other socials. They're all up on the screen right now. I'd love to have you. I am most active on TikTok and my Instagram story, but I exist everywhere else as well. Before I call it for today as well, I would like to remind you that I do have a super limited number of prints still available from this year's print drop. These are 9x12 inch prints on archival quality paper, and they're $35 each or 2 for $50. Shipping is free in Canada, but available worldwide. So if you are interested, please email hello@stageleftproject.ca and I will assist you. The piece I worked on today is an untitled memorial piece that was a commission for a friend. It is 9x12 inches on 300 GSM cold press block, and I used watercolor, gouache, mica pigments, India and acrylic inks, gold, silver, and copper foil, and gel pen. It is not available for purchase, and there are no prints of this one. However, if you would like your own custom piece, please send me an email, hello@stageleftproject.ca, and I'd love to get started. If you found resonance in today's narrative, and if you enjoyed today's conversation, I invite you to express your support by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I would love to hear your thoughts, your feelings, and your own stories, for this is a space where our collective voices are celebrated. If you wish to stay informed and ensure you don't miss any future uploads, please ring the bell. Thank you so much for being a part of this community, for you are cherished and appreciated. Remember, one day you will die, but for now, live well. Ciao for now.